Tommy Johnson was a man with a voice that could cry out with the depth of a soul weighed down by sorrow, and a guitar that seemed to echo the heartbeats of the Delta. Though many associate the tale of selling one's soul at the Crossroads with Robert Johnson, the legend in fact belongs to Tommy, and his story runs far deeper than folklore. So get settled in, because this story is unlike any you've ever heard. In the summer of 1920, Tommy found himself restless and defeated. He had been traveling from town to town, playing juke joints and street corners, but his music wasn't drawing the crowds he dreamed of. So one humid evening, as the cicadas sang their incessant song, an old man known as a hoodoo practitioner told Tommy about a ritual performed at the Crossroads just outside of town. Tommy laughed it off at first, chalking it up to old Delta superstition, but as the weeks dragged on and his frustrations grew, the idea festered in his mind. So one misty May night, he packed up his guitar and walked the dusty road to a lonely intersection just a few miles from town. The moon was a pale silver, casting faint light on the barren fields and the dirt path they called the road. As Tommy arrived at the crossroads, he felt a strange stillness, as though the world were holding its breath. He sat on the ground, strumming his guitar, waiting for something, anything, to happen. At the stroke of midnight, a shadow emerged from the darkness. It was a man, or so it seemed, dressed in a sharp black suit. His skin gleamed like polished obsidian, and his eyes burned with an otherworldly fire. He carried a guitar of his own, one that seemed to hum with an eerie and audible tune. The man smiled a crooked smile, took Tommy's guitar, tuned it with deft precision, and began to play. The sound that came from the guitar was unlike anything Tommy had ever heard. It was raw, it was wild, and it was beautiful, like the essence of the Delta itself. When the man handed the guitar back to Tommy, his fingers tingled as they touched the strings. He began to play, and suddenly his music was transformed. His fingers danced across the fretboard as though possessed, coaxing out sounds that seemed to rise straight from the soil, the rivers, and the sweat of his ancestors. But as the last note rang out, the man in black stepped closer, his fiery eyes locking onto Tommy's. "You'll be remembered," he said, his voice now a whisper. "But remember this. Every note you play will cost you a piece of yourself. Play long enough, and there won't be much left." Before Tommy could respond, the figure vanished, leaving behind only the faint smell of smoke and a chill in the humid night air. Over the years, Tommy became a blues legend. His songs were filled with a haunting beauty, his voice carrying the weight of something otherworldly. As time went on, Tommy began to drink heavily, trying to drown out the strange whispers he heard in the quiet moments. He claimed to see shadows following him and hear footsteps in empty rooms. And by the time he passed in 1956, he was a broken man, though his music has lived on. Johnson's style and songs influenced many blues musicians, including Howlin' Wolf and Elmore James. His falsetto vocal style and slide guitar work became staples of the genre. The modern blues and rock worlds owe much to his innovations. The legend of the Crossroads would later be tied to Robert Johnson, another bluesman whose life ended much too soon. Those who knew Tommy's story swore it was he who had first made the deal with the devil, his soul forever bound to the music of the Delta, and to the man in black who still waits at the crossroads, tuning his guitar.